out.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast where a behavioral scientist examines what it's like to live a humorous life. Glimpse into the lives of the funniest people in entertainment, business, and science as your host, Dr. Peter McGraw, explores their habits, motivations, and secrets to success. Get ready to fire up your brain and your funny bone. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast that looks at the lives of funny people. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Chester C. Chester has been nominated for 6 Streamy Awards with 1 win for Best Original Song. He starred on Broadway as rock star Stacey Jaxx in Rock of Ages, and he's sold 2 million downloads of original music without the help of a label. And finally, he was one of the first 100 people to garner over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Welcome, Chester.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Chester, if you weren't working as a musician, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't working as a musician?
You can't work as a musician. You have to give up all music. No producing.
So no producing, no directing, no acting? You mean entertainment industry? No
well, I mean, do you think I think of you mostly as a musician.
Yeah, that's true. I think I've just storytelling in general, and that comes in a lot of different forms. Okay. So I've dabbled in the, obviously the directing and the acting.
All right, so you can't do any of that stuff.
I can't do any of that stuff.
Yeah,
I'd probably be in the military, I guess.
Seriously?
Probably, just because that's just the family tree.
You grew up in the. You were saying we were getting set up. You grew up in the shadow of Travis.
Yeah, Travis Air Force Base. My dad's 20 years Navy, retired.
Okay.
His grandparents. So my grandpa, my dad's dad, fought in World War I, World War II, and Korea as a Marine.
Oh my goodness!
He was born in 1899.
That's like the luckiest man alive.
Yes,
most unlucky.
One of the two
simultaneously.
Yeah, he lied about his age to fight in the First War, which I think was a thing back then. People aren't doing that so much these days.
You need to lie about your age to fight for your country. You need a really good enemy.
Yeah, well, I think we had one in World War I.
That's what I mean. You need a really hated enemy.
Yeah, and my grandma was a Marine as well. She was an officer.
Is that right?
Yeah, long lineage of military family. So,
is there disappointment in your family that you didn't do military?
If my grandpa was alive, probably.
Yeah,
I think that man would be confused as to why I'm spending my time in the arts. No, my mom and dad have always supported everything that I've done. But when I grew up, I thought I wanted to be a fighter pilot.
Who didn't? Well, actually,
yeah, Top Gun.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're a bit younger than me, but when I was in high school, Top Gun was, the Cold War was full effect, like Berlin Wall coming down. Actually, that was college, I think, for me. But nonetheless, Top Gun was the thing.
Oh yeah,
I was in I was in Air Force ROTC in high school.
Oh, okay, yeah,
yeah, and I did it for 1 semester in college, and then I got out of engineering. I was like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah. Well, I used to tell this joke where I used to say I thought I wanted to be a fighter pilot, and then I saw Days of Thunder, and I thought maybe I should be a NASCAR driver. And then I watched A Few Good Men, and I was like, being a lawyer looks pretty cool. And I realized I just wanted to be Tom Cruise.
Yes.
I just wanted to be. And so, in a weird way, it's kind of true.
You're more like Tom Cruise than a fighter pilot or a
today,
NASCAR driver.
Yeah. It's actually Stacey Jaxx. He played Stacey Jaxx in Rock of Ages.
Wait, Tom Cruise did?
Mm-hmm. So in the film version of Rock of Ages, Tom Cruise plays the role that I played.
I didn't know that. Wow. Yeah. How are your lives? Are your lives intertwined in any other way? Like,
no,
do you have any share any girlfriends or?
No. I bumped into him at Runyon Canyon out here one time.
Okay.
He was with Katie and Surrey, and I was walking these 2 dogs at the time.
And you're like, hey, Rock of Ages, Stacey Jaxx.
I was just more like, what? Why is Tom Cruise just randomly walking through Onion Canyon as if he's not super A-list? You know what I mean? Like, you don't normally see that kind of level of star just walking around with their kid without the paparazzi just chasing.
He's trying to live a normal life.
It's
hard to do, I think, in Runyon Canyon as is Tom Cruise.
Yeah. But I do remember afterwards, was telling that story to a bunch of my friends, and all the girls want to know what Katie was like and what she looked like. And I was like, I really don't remember. I was only staring at Tom Cruise. It's like, I'm not even positive it was Katie.
He's a fascinating, obviously he's a fascinating case study. Speaking of, he's in a movie called Oblivion, which I thought was pretty good.
It was okay. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. You know what I mean? Like a solid, like straight down the middle Tom Cruise vehicle. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Nice little twist at the end, kind of thing. But it's funny. There's something about that movie that's just incredibly distracting. So, he's like running around with like guns and he's on motorbikes and he's in fight, like he's flying around in the ship and everything. The man never puts on a helmet the entire movie.
It's just bothering you the whole time.
It is. I'm just like, because of course, he's Tom Cruise. You need the face, you need the hair.
Yeah.
The beauty has to be there, right? Kind of a thing. And I'm just like, this would just never happen.
That would never fly. Yeah.
It would never fly, right? So, I'm just like, there's no way that they would ever let this man do his job without a helmet on.
That's hilarious.
So we're actually, for the listener, we're in Los Angeles. And we're in the office of Phantom, which is owned by a mutual friend of ours. That's how we met. And Runyon Canyon is a mile.
Oh yeah, it's walking distance
west of here. Kind of a thing. And it's sort of like a hiking, running trail. Like by my home Boulder standards, it's pretty tame. But it's like as far as like just a great little place to have in the middle of the city, so to speak.
Oh yeah. It's off-leash dog park as well, which I think is a big.
And the people watching in Runyon Canyon is extraordinary.
Yeah,
like just all types of people doing all types of things, living their, Hollywood existence.
Well, if you want to feel self-conscious about how fit you are, go to Runyon Canyon because there's plenty of people that are just jacked, shirtless guys constantly running by you.
And jacked, nearly shirtless women.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, yeah, that's right. Okay, so not in the military. So how did you become a musician then?
There was a piano just in our living room, and I think started just tinkering with it when I was 6 years old.
Is that right?
Never had a lesson, so I play by ear. Essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a memory of listening to some Bryan Adams. Everything I do it for you. And I remember thinking to myself, I want to write one of those types of songs. Like I just thought it was so cool.
Do you know why the piano was there?
It was just furniture, more or less.
Okay.
And
like aspirational type thing.
It was this Chickering. It was this really old, like had actual ivory keys, a really old piano. But yeah.
Still there?
No, it's still in the family, but my aunt has it now. But my parents saw that I was interested in the piano, and then once they got rid of that one, they got me a new one, and one that had headphones, electric piano. But the funny thing is, like, they never forced me to play the piano, which I actually think drew me to it more. For me, it was always a stress relief.
Yeah, I took piano lessons as a kid.
Oh, okay.
And it was bad.
Oh, yeah.
It was bad. There was traditional bad piano playing experience, like a teacher who was overly stern, not encouraging enough, a lack of talent. On, you know what I mean? It just drove any of the fun and joy that could come from making music out of my 11-year-old body and brain, kind of thing.
I think one of the things that really drew me to the piano, though, is, and I think this is so fascinating to me. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, right? It's just it's this language that is just in you. It's innate. So if I were to sit down and I were to play, C major, and then I play C minor, and we all feel a very similar. We have a similar experience that everyone has.
There's psychological research on this,
and so this is this language that we speak, but we don't understand fully. And so there's a lot of mysteries in that to me, and I think that's really fascinating. I mean, I think of, you listen to a Chopin piece, and I get. You just know that you're listening to a genius, and he's speaking this language, and he's making us feel these things, but we can't really put words to it. And there's something really special about that. So anyway, but that was one of the major reasons I think I was drawn to the piano. So I was like fascinated by all the.
You know, the way you describe it, it feels like there's parallels to comedy.
Oh, sure.
Right. So people are laughing, but they don't exactly know why.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're having this joyous experience. Although, of course, you know, or it doesn't always have to be joyous, right? It could be, you know, right. Good comedy can elicit a variety of emotions beyond just, just beyond amusement, but as well as the case with music, clearly, right? So, you know, pop music makes you feel good, but you know, a lot of classical music may make you feel sad or angry or disturbed, you know. You know, it's interesting hearing, like, you know, it's interesting, this idea of chance, right? There's just chance. There's a piano in the living room. It's there for some other reason. It wasn't there for you. And then you decide to tinker with it. I like watching like sort of documentaries and people talk about their craft. I mean, it's actually part of the reason I launched I'm Not Joking, which is to get people to talk about their lives and hear their stories. Like off the top of my head, Jack White. Different Jack.
Yeah.
Well, both musicians
though, yeah.
Jack
Black's great.
In It Might Get Loud. So there's a documentary with him, Jimmy Page, and The Edge. And Jack White is by far the most interesting person of the three. The other two are kind of duds. Obviously, you know, brilliant guitarist, but Jack White's like an interesting guy top to bottom, storyteller. He's a little like you, actually, as I think about it. And he talks about he was working in like a Goodwill type thing, or, you know, he basically got paid in a guitar at some point, and that was how he started playing guitar.
That was the moment.
I think he started out doing. I'm not sure I'm getting it exactly right, but he's like doing drums, and then, you know, picked up the guitar. And there's a story. Jimmy Page has a similar kind of story where like he moved into an apartment and there was this guitar that was like left in there or something. Like, you know, just happenstance. And you think about like the music that Led Zeppelin made would never have been made in all likelihood if somebody else hadn't just left a guitar behind.
Yeah.
You know, super fascinating.
Crazy to think about. Yeah.
I want to ask you a question about this because I'm looking for a third story about someone in music. So I have two stories about someone being so committed to their craft where they make a choice of an instrument over a bed. Okay, so Jack White grew up in a family of like 10 children. You know, and he had a small room. He had his own room in the house, but it was like 9 by 9. Like it was this tiny little room. And he had 2 drum sets in there, an amp, a mixer, you know, a bunch of stuff. He took the bed out of the room because he had to make a choice between his musical gear and his bed, and the musical gear won. He had a piece of foam that he would roll up and sleep on.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So the second story is Rick Rubin. So when Rick Rubin was a college student at NYU, he got into producing, and he moved his bed out of his room to make room for all the gear. I can't remember how he slept or where he slept, but it was something. Hollywood Boulevard, there it is.
Yeah.
Any case, and I'm looking for a third. You know, you always want 3 stories. You don't have any of those?
Me. Well,
or do you know of any like?
Oh, I know of any of stories like that.
Of any, you know?
No, I mean, I'm thinking of Whiplash, but that's a fictional.
So you play so much till you bleed, right?
Yeah, I just remember that moment where he had to break up with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, sorry, I just don't have time for both of these.
I just can't do this. Yeah. That, by the way, that I'm sure happens.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, in a way, I respect that too. In a weird way, I think a lot of people do. There's someone that is so driven by a very specific goal that they are going to go above and beyond and attempt to be the best at that thing. I mean, look around. That's how this entire world works. I mean, think about it. No one really cares so much about the thing that you do as long as you're the best at the thing that you do. That's who we put on pedestals. And we live in a world where people are taking balls and hitting it with pieces of wood,
Yes.
or putting balls into hoops.
Yes.
We do not care about the thing that you do.
As long as it's difficult.
And if you become the best at it, well, then you're the idol.
I mean, look at esports.
Oh yeah, everything. As long as you're the best, that's what we all.
I actually think there is, obviously that moment in the movie is kind of a, and is a sort of a sad is meant to be sort of a sad moment, but I think in some ways, well, okay. So I teach this marketing management course, and on day one, within 30 minutes of starting the class, I talk about having a model, a way to think about people's needs, their goals, basically, their needs, wants, goals, however you want to think about it. And I put forth this model of well-being called the PERMA model. So it's an acronym: pleasure, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement.
Okay.
Okay. And the neat thing about the PERMA model, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, but it's worth revisiting, is what it suggests, and I believe to be the case, is there are multiple paths to living a good life. Mm-hmm. And the important thing, in my opinion, is to be clear about what your path is. And so, as, for example, achievement, you were just talking about achievement, becoming, a 300 hitter in baseball, or making it, playing at an elite level in baseball, winning gold medals, or whatever that thing is a form of achievement, in the same way that building Google or Amazon is a form of achievement, or, getting 100 million viewers on YouTube. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, and there's a good feeling that comes from that, can compel people to do that. So meaning, and sometimes meaning and achievement go hand in hand, but they don't have to. Meaning is, is sort of doing something bigger than yourself, like, curing cancer, or raising children, or, feeding starving children. And then engagement is these artistic pursuits, right? So making music, making art, it doesn't have to be art, but art's the best place to find engagement, this idea of flow, where time disappears. I'm sure you've had this, where you sit down at the piano, you start playing, you're working on a song, and then the next thing you know, you haven't eaten in 6 hours.
Sure.
Right? That's flow.
Yeah. For writing, that really happens to me if I get in the zone writing a script. I'm sure that happens for you when you write, right?
On occasion, yes. It's great.
Yeah. Like 7 hours go by, you're like, wait.
I mean, I can't, it's hard for me to write for that long, but, but I used to have that when I was a grad student doing like data analysis. It doesn't have to be any sort of creative process, problem-solving process. The point of bringing this up is that, we tend to think about the paths to living a good life as being meaning, having a family or whatever, or pleasure, right? Like having good times, but, the people will give up those things for achievement, for example. Like, people might not sleep very much. They may not take good care of their health. Their relationships may suffer. The gold medalist, will spend hours in the pool in pain, and stuff like that. Or, Whiplash is a fictional account of this, but someone who basically says, I need to isolate myself from the world in order to create this magic that's there. And so, if you need to point to how compelled someone would be, you just have to point how someone would give up their bed to have a second drum set. Like, that's a trade-off that I think the average person can't imagine, because they're not propelled by anything so much that they would be willing to do that. Do you have one of those, like, so you've had a lot of success as a singer, songwriter, performer.
Yeah, I did okay. Yeah,
you do okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you had any moment in time in your life where you had to make that kind of trade-off? Do you have your own Whiplash moment, or your own Rick Rubin moment?
Nothing that extreme, but
you're not married.
But that's not by choice.
Okay.
Yeah. My story, though, I think at this point is
Tell it.
It's interesting because I feel as though, and we were kind of talking about, we were starting to talk about this before we got
And I stopped you. Yeah, I stopped you.
Is that I created a lot of goals in my mind that were essentially accomplished, right? So because I sort of, I saw my name in the marquee when I was on Broadway, or when I was in Malaysia, I performed to 6,000-7,000 fans, and they were singing my lyrics. This was a dream I had when I was like 7, 8 years old.
This is your like Bohemian Rhapsody moment.
But it really was astonishing because in Malaysia it was very different than it is here, and it was just insane to think of that many people knowing the lyrics to a song I wrote and hearing them sing it back.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, every time a little moment like that happened, like that Malaysian moment, it felt like a box was checked. It didn't feel like, okay, here we go, now we're doing it. Let's hit the road and keep this going.
Okay.
It was like, so that's what that feels like. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's this idea of goal release.
Yeah,
in
that's
psychology that happens where you achieve a goal and then you may release it, and now you're not motivated the way you were before.
So that's definitely what I've been going through for the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
It is not appealing to be back on Broadway. Even though I love acting and I would enjoy being on Broadway, I would love it, absolutely love it. It'd be great. I am not motivated in the same way to try and achieve that goal. Like the idea before, when I was here in LA, and I was doing waiting tables, and I was on the Disney Channel at the time hosting
the classic. That's pre-Uber.
Yeah, exactly. And it was. I remember being driven by trying to get out of. I needed to create a world where I was making all of my money from art, and that was a big reason why I started a YouTube channel. And at the time, actually, a MySpace channel. I was trying to cultivate fans around some of the music that I was posting on there, but that was a big driving factor, because not only was the idea of getting to spend more time with my art, but it was also the idea of not having to work a job with a boss ever again.
I can imagine.
It's a very motivating factor.
Yeah.
And
I'm guessing that most server jobs don't really feature world-class bosses.
No. And I don't work well. And
you are quite, this is a digression, you're quite prompt for an artist. Like, you are probably the most prompt artist I've ever met.
So how so? What do you mean by prompt?
Like, you show up not on time, but early.
Is it not a trait of artist to be punctual? Well, I was, the art part.
I think artists are more likely to be on what we call event time versus clock time. Sure.
I'm also.
Maybe it's that military background.
Yeah, maybe. I have a friend one of my best friends. He's still in the military. He's in the reserves. And you want to talk about punctual? I mean, like, on the minute. It's amazing to watch. But no, I think this. The art part of me is just one part of me, right? So there's also, I was very excited about being more entrepreneurial when I was in my 20s, and I was driven by wanting to, be a part of something. Like when we co-founded the Young MF Network, that was a huge achievement for me, and I was equally excited about getting that done as I would be being on Broadway. And so, yeah, now, so as you know, I'm doing this. I have this mission that I've created where I want to build 100 wells in Africa.
Yeah.
And so a part of the reason I did that is, well, first of all, obviously it's wells in Africa.
Yeah, this is the M of the perma-model.
This is a good thing,
meaningful thing to do.
Like, it needs to happen. I can go down. That's a whole other conversation. I can explain why people need to be paying attention to that. But that aside,
you and Matt Damon.
The selfish part of it for me, I will call it the selfish reason. The selfish reason was I want another incentive. I want another motivating factor. Because the better I do as an artist, the faster I'm going to be able to build those levels.
Yeah. So what is this project? Talk about the project.
Well, about 3-4 years ago, I bought a well on a gala event, and I'm being brutally honest, I wasn't really sure if I got it for all the right reasons, right? And I really struggled with this conversation. I had this conversation with myself about intention and outcome, and what is that relationship between those two things, and what matters more, And I'll never fully
be able to answer that question. I think that's one of those philosophical questions you can't quite
Wait, what's
finish.
the downside? What's the problem with? Is there any problem with buying a well?
Well, let's say go to an extreme. If your intention was to impress a girl, and that wasn't the case that night.
I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I see.
yeah,
It's
okay,
process
so-
versus outcome. I see what you're saying.
and so you start to, well, would you rather be with somebody or meet somebody that has good intentions and no outcomes or bad outcomes? So it's
I
an interesting
see.
question, and it's a more complicated question than you can just simply answer. But what I have landed on is I can spend the rest of my life asking, figuring this out, talking it out with others about intentions and outcomes and what that looks like. But it'd be better if I end my life having built 100 wells,
Regardless of your intention.
regardless of where I land on that, and understanding my own intentions, understanding the relationship between intention and outcome. And so,
I will say this. I think that magnificent things have happened in the world because someone wanted to sleep with someone else.
yeah, I'm sure of it. And to be clear, that's not my intention whatsoever. There's a combination of things as to why I'm doing it. And there is a big part of it is I do understand the need for this to happen, and it's part of it. But of course, there's other reasons that I've attached myself to this. I think that goes without saying. I think if anyone's being honest, there's a multitude of things, reasons why you do something. So I kind of going back to what you were saying before with goals, I'm a big believer that you want to set numbers, right? I learned this from working out. You don't want to say you want to lose weight. That's a pointless thing to say. Because don't eat for that day. You did it. Your goal's done. You've just lost some weight. No, you want to say I want to lose 10 pounds or I want to whatever. The more specific, the better. Yeah, exactly. The more specific, the better.
That's like the smart. What is it? Specific, measurable.
Not familiar.
There's a framework for how to create useful goals, and you just talked about two of them.
Yeah. Well,
I can't remember the other two or three.
But that's I think that's really important. And so I've set a goal to build 100 of these wells. Also, partly because specifically in East Watini, the company that I'm working with, Thirst Project, they're trying to flip that entire country into a country that has access to clean drinking water. Right now, their date, I think it's 2027, and we want to bring that date down. So by concentrating efforts in one area, we can make a little bit more of an impact as well. And so that's kind of where my mind is on that. I've realized that as I set out to do this, everything grows exponentially faster when I am doing better at just being an artist. And I'm actually really excited to get back in the game. I just haven't inked it, but I think it's okay to say I haven't inked the deal yet. But we both said yes after the meeting that I had over at Gersh. It looks like I'm going to be signing with Gersh.
Oh, that's
Agency.
great.
It's an amazing agency, and I'm really, really excited about getting back in the game. I was with WME for a long time, but I haven't been with an agency in years, and a lot of things. There's a lot of opportunities that come when you're with an agency and you start putting the work ethic in and try to help make things happen. It's just nice to have a team of people that are all sort of on the same page.
Sure.
But I've been calling myself retired for like the last 3-4 years. And that's not fun. Like, not that I haven't had fun. It's just that.
But if you're a creative person who can get into a flow state where they might work for 7 hours and forget to eat, retiring from that makes your life worse off.
Absolutely. I have been struggling to really get out of the sort of dry, I don't know how you want to call it, but this sort of stale state that I'm in. I don't feel like I'm ever in moments of flow. I'm just sort of getting by. And I think a part of that is because of becoming more financially stable. There's no incentive on that end, and so it's purely based on goals that I must create for myself, and it feels like I'm manufacturing some of these goals. And so, and the other thing too is, and I'm a huge believer that the most important, the formula for success, that at least I've observed in my own life and others around me, is consistency and efficiency, and being very good at doing the thing that you're doing and continually doing it over and over and over.
This is the writer's practice. Is you get up every morning, you have a cup of coffee, and you write for X amount of time. And it doesn't matter if the words are flowing out of you or you're staring at a blank screen. Steve Pressfield has this book called The War of Art. And his big thing is you don't wait for the muse to inspire you to write. You start writing, and then the muse visits you.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of consistency.
I think Diane Warren writes a song a day.
There are these people who have really ambitious goals. I don't know if he's still doing it, but Seth Godin was writing a blog post a day, kind of thing. I mean, one of my favorite things is like Dr. Dre. I talk about someone who doesn't need any money.
Yeah.
He still every day goes into the studio.
Yeah.
Like that that is the artist way.
See that, and that's where I envy some of my friends, that when I hear them speak of acting or when I hear them speak of music, it's different, and you can't just obtain that passion, right? I feel like Rocky 3. I feel like Rocky, Eye of the Tiger.
Happy, yeah, of course, yeah.
It really.
Oh, is it Rocky 3 or 4?
Rocky 3.
3 with Clubber Lang.
Yep,
yeah.
exactly.
4 is Russian. Yeah, that's right.
He gets a little lazy.
And here comes Mr. T. He's the young, hungry guy.
Got the Eye of the Tiger.
Right. Yeah, I know. I think it's interesting that you're bringing this up now. I'm always on the lookout that I'm losing my edge. For the reasons that you talk about. So I'm about to get full professor, which is the highest distinction that you can get in terms of the normal tenure track. I mean, there's other things that you can do. It actually came up in a previous podcast where I asked one of my senior colleagues, and he talked about changing up your career, becoming like the chair of the department, becoming a dean, kind of thing. But in terms of a research scholar, aside from awards, but in terms of like status, you get to that point, and then most people don't ever think about it, but the question is, well, what now? The natural thing for me to do is, well, what now? Because it's not like it's now an external thing that I'm chasing after. I've always had the internal and external, but it's interesting to hear you talk about this because I've thought a lot about this stuff.
Yeah.
What do I do? I mean, I'm not going to retire, but, what do I do? What do I do differently? Because, you get to a milestone, whether it be financial freedom or your gold medal or, Broadway.
Not to turn you into my therapist, but I'm not, if I'm being brutally honest with myself.
Yeah. The best podcast feature.
Oh, yeah.
Brutal honesty.
I sometimes wonder how much of the state that I'm in now or last years is also due to just fear of not being able to reach the next level of things. And if I don't fight for it, then I can't lose, sort of thing,
sure,
right?
Of course, yeah.
And if I don't put myself out there, no one can judge me and call me a loser.
Feel that? You don't. I hear people talk about that a lot.
I'm being honest with myself. I'm not saying that is.
Yeah. You don't strike me as the type whose fear of failure is holding him back.
Well, so sometimes I actually like fighting from behind.
Yeah, being the underdog persona is useful.
It's not as fun when everyone's like, "Oh, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna do great." Yeah. You're just like, well, no, I don't want to do it. I need some people rooting against me, Yeah. I think there's part of that too. But the one thing that does sort of inspire me every time I think about it is that the man in the arena quote. I mean, that just, it's the critic. The critic does not count. I forget the...
Yeah, that's right. Is that like an Eisenhower quote or something?
It's Roosevelt, right?
Roosevelt, okay.
But just that concept of, like, sitting back and being an observer is not what matters. Like, it's the man in the arena that counts. And so I think about that, and I'm saying, I need to get back out.
I have, I'll give you two quick things that may help. It's helped me, I think. So one is, I think this notion, I think of a lot of life like the sine wave. You're up, and if you're up, you're not going to stay up. You're going to be down. And if you're down, you're not going to stay down. You're going to come back up. And I think that happens with things like motivation. It happens with like things like your health. It happens with a lot of things. And I think being down, being slow, being confused, being foggy is important because the acceleration out of that is really great.
Yeah. By the way, I do feel like that's on the horizon in a weird way.
Which the up. I think you should think that.
I do. And like if you would,
there's no evidence in your life to make you think otherwise.
No. And I know the formula. It's so funny. When I slip into state, okay, outside of work and passing things like that, like just sometimes I get you get in this depressed state. As somebody that's older, that's gone through waves of you're not not in a happy place, whatever you want to call it. I learned some tools on how to get myself out of there. It's like I tell myself, all right, look, I know you don't want to go on a hike, but you're going to go on a hike. And even if you don't enjoy it the first time, you're going to keep going on hikes.
I'm going to behave like a healthy person.
Yes, yeah. You start freaking, you know the rules.
Yes.
And there's a, sort of going back to what you said, it's like, let the muse come to you. Sort of thing. I'm working on something right now. I've created a character, and I'm creating music as this character.
Oh, that's fun.
And I'm having a lot of fun doing it. There's no rules anymore. I'm not trying to be seen as some sort of like artsy guy. No, the music that I'm creating through this character is stupid. It's not, but it makes me laugh. I literally, I'm about to write this one song that's just about hands and my appreciation for having hands. You pick things up, you can wave to people. but I'm going to do a whole...
Sounds like a children's song.
It's not. You know what it is? Have you seen Get Him to the Greek?
Yes.
Okay, so picture that character actually putting out an album.
Right, okay.
It's something like that. And by the way, the character actually does have an accent. So he talks like this, right? But he's not actually from the place.
Okay.
So like if you ask him where he's from, he says, it's not British, it's not Australian, whatever. I just like to sound like this. You just say, so they would sound however you want to sound,
Right.
I'm creating a whole backstory with him. But and I've decided something I've never done. I've never put out an actual album. I've always lived in the singles.
Oh yes, of course. Like this you're talking about going old school.
Yeah, well,
an album is old school.
It is. Like people still put out albums, and I've realized something. I've thought about that. Like I've always put out a single, right? So I put out a single, and maybe it does well, maybe it doesn't, whatever. But then it's sort of like, what's a good analogy for this? It's like I feel like there's just a lot more power. I don't know if I'm going to describe this correctly. If you wait and you compile a bunch of your art together and then release it all at once, it's got a bigger boom. You know what I mean? So and you can still put out the singles and create music videos and release those music videos at different times or whatever. But in this way, if you do have a song that people do like, they can now. There's a whole album there to support.
There's a movie. So Jay-Z, called. I don't know if he faked a retirement, but he put out the Black Album and then retired, right? That was he did a show at Madison Square Garden and so on, and then created a documentary film around the experience of making the album and so on. There's a scene in that movie with a young Kanye West, right? So I think this kind of hip hop model of making music is really interesting, where you have multiple producers. What's the dude? The guy who had the song Happy.
Marco?
No.
Happy. Ed Sheeran?
No.
I don't know.
Pharrell.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But, our mutual friend, I'm going to put this in a little plug, who was in an earlier episode, Pharrell does a 24-hour video for Happy, and Darwin dances in it.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
It's entertaining to watch. But so he's in there. He produces one of the songs on. So the song that Kanye produces is Lucifer is in there, and the way Kanye talks about the Black Album is that the Black Album's like a movie. Mm-hmm. It's not an album. It's like a movie where each song is a scene in the movie that creates an arc and so on. So I think that's my connection to this idea of creating a string of songs
Yeah.
that people can then lose themselves in.
Sure.
Of course, some are better than others, and some get released, and some get videos.
But there's also there's something to saying there's something to having a single go out, someone liking that single, and then looking for more stuff from you because they are starting to feel like they like your brand of whatever it is that you're creating. Like, oh, I want more of this type of thing.
Yeah.
And if you do a single, it's like gone.
Right.
And they don't know when the next single comes out.
The album feels more like art than commerce.
Well, there's that too. But I just think that it's nice having like this library of stuff because that way every time every one of the songs within the album as a sort of calling card to the rest of the album.
Yeah, I get it. So I want to go back to this character and the hand song, etc. So this is reminiscent of something that's come up on the podcast before that I'm like really, really interested in. Actually, I've been talking to a lot of people about, especially artists, about this notion of an audience of one, that you're going to make something for yourself without concern for an audience. You're going to make something that brings you joy, that you want to make. And what I think is interesting about that is it's a high risk, high reward endeavor, right? So the risk, of course, is you truly achieve your goal, and you make something that only one person in the world likes.
But hold on. Okay.
Right? And so, of course, that's a pretty low downside because the process of making the thing for you brings you joy, is engaging, is interesting, all those kinds of things. The upside is you make something that brings you joy, and because you made something that's unique, no one else in the world could have made it. It's not like you were shooting for the middle. It's why like all these pop songs, everybody gets sued for stealing the song. They're not stealing the song. They're just making something that lots of people like, and that just happens to sound like other stuff that people like. But if you create, what I'm saying is like this character, this album or whatever, you might land on something that no one has ever heard of before, and it resonates with them, and now you've created something that is truly special.
Well, what I was going to say is what's really fascinating to me is that my experience is actually that whenever you try and write something for like one specific person or for yourself or whatever it is, those are the ones that end up actually more people relate to it because it's more specific. So like every time I've tried to write a love song, that Nashville writing style, I go into a room, we do the 9-to-5er, and we pump out a song, and it's probably 1-4-5 and whatever. And
Tin Pan Alley.
And we're trying to achieve, what's hot right now, But when I actually am trying to impress a girl, a specific human being, right, and I'm thinking about her, and I'm writing the song, it's directed just to her, that's when I actually tap into lyrics and melodies that actually resonate with more people.
I think it's such a fascinating idea because what I like about it is it's like the exception to the typical rule about marketing, which is find the target audience, find out what they need, then give them what they need, and success ensues. And give it to them better than the competition, and success ensues. And this sort of artistic view, which is ignore the audience, ignore the broad audience. Pick one. I was making the argument you do it for yourself, although your argument's a good one. You do it for that one other person, and yet you might then create something that no one else has made. Like you've escaped the competition.
Yeah, I think of Ben Folds when do you guys know Ben Folds?
Just vaguely, yeah.
No. Well, like some of the songs, like Sarah without an H, it's very specific. You know what I mean? Fred Jones, these songs are clearly not generalized, it's a little esoteric anymore.
Right.
But yeah, it's fantastic, and it's stuff that you're only going to get from Ben Folds.
How did this character come about? Why did you start working on it?
Oh, partly because, and this I think fitting to your podcast. I think that we've gotten so politically correct, and we all know it. Everyone talks about it, but everyone's so sensitive, right? Mm-hmm. And those that are really sensitive are the loudest ones. And
outrage culture is
outrage, and it's real, and they win a lot of the times. And I'll be silenced, despite my intentions are not to offend. It's not how offense works, so I have to listen. I have to be careful, right? If I'm being told by enough people I'm being offensive, I have to acknowledge that. You have to. And so it's a weird time. And but what I've realized, at least this is my thought process. This character, Sir Lionel, that's his name.
Okay.
Sir Lionel III. He is a character, Ron Burgundy type of character, and this level of being removed from my opinions right now is going to give me a lot more liberty. There's a lot of songs I wanted to write and create just as me, as Chester, but then I held back. I don't want to. They're not going to get the joke. Yeah, they're not going to.
The South Park character, like Trey and Matt Stone, can say a lot of things when they are.
Yeah.
What's the
Carmen? Yeah. Well, and here's the thing: you can establish with certain characters. This is not a good person.
Yeah, of course. It's satirical.
Yeah, you're like, yes. That's why he's saying that. It's always funny characters.
Yeah. No one is not a hero.
Yeah, exactly. no one is upset at Mac or Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But if they were in an interview and they were speaking from their own perspective on things, and they said the same things those characters said, and now we have a problem.
That's right. And even Stephen Colbert,
or his first show.
His first show.
100%.
Yeah.
And so giving myself that little bit of a cushion between, my actual opinions and jokes that I would like to make, I think is going to be nice.
Yeah. That's where it came from?
Yeah. Just feeling, I have felt very silent this last 3 years, especially somebody that lives in LA and is not, I don't affiliate myself with either of the parties. Right? I'm not Republican. I'm not Democrat. I call myself an agnosticrat. I don't know, and I'm okay with not knowing on most issues, but that'll get you in trouble in this town.
You have to.
Oh my God! If you don't have, if you go, what? I don't know if I can do a proper cost-benefit analysis on that policy description. This is totally a honest, intelligent perspective sometimes. To say, hey, look, it's not. This is more complicated than you're giving credit. You'll get yelled at for not having exercise.
So one of my colleagues, Phil Fernbach, has a book called The Knowledge Illusion. And what he shows is that indeed people have very strong opinions about how things should work, how they do work, and what his work and other people's work shows is that as soon as you start to scratch the surface, you realize that people don't know shit. And especially when it comes to things like 100%. Anything that's like
political
policy or whatever, but policy is incredibly complicated.
Oh my God, the healthcare system? How quickly you get to someone's level of ignorance and you poke at their understanding of our healthcare system or immigration, or like any of the stuff. So the tax stuff.
He has an example about how a toilet works. So if you ask people, do you know how a toilet works? They're like, yeah, they have lots of experience with it. And then they're like, well, explain how a toilet works.
Yeah.
And he has this funny thing is, when you really get down to it, most people, their understanding of a toilet is, you press this lever and water goes down.
Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, these states, this gets me excited because I'm still passionate about this. I always say that people, specifically when it comes to politically charged topics, because those are the ones that are politically charged for a reason, because they are complex, so both sides get to manipulate it and turn it into little political narratives. They don't mean anything. They're not really getting to the issue. People aren't arguing about something they know. They're arguing about the validity of the people that told them it is so. What they're really arguing about is, I trust, I have faith in the Grafton wouldn't be wrong and he wouldn't lie to me. Versus something like, or like I would have trust, maybe a better Joe do something on the political side. But Elizabeth Warren has told me, her perspective on taxes, and so I'm not someone that engages in that conversation about taxes, and they're not actually talking about taxes. They're just talking about whether or not Elizabeth Warren or Ted Cruz is a better sort of mouthpiece. You know, like, or have a better grasp of the topic, and they just accepted it. Yeah, and they just accepted it that these people know what they're talking about. The funny thing is, neither of those people are really the experts. We live in an era now where you have politicians pretending to be experts in a lot of these topics. Like, one of my favorite things is those old Milton Friedman videos where he did Creative and they actually had experts in their field talking about economics, but they knew what they were talking about, and it was civil conversation. And you had all these great Marxists and socialists on the show, and those are real conversations. Now we have people like Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz doing a town hall or a debate on a topic that's not even expertise.
I will tell you this, I think having been in academia now for 20 years, even the so-called experts don't really know as much as we give them credit for knowing.
Oh, I believe that. And I think part of the problem is we speak definitively about things that are subjective.
Yeah. And that is often where knowledge is evolving. You know, so what most people should say is, well, what we know now, you know, there is this sort of belief, I like this belief, is that we're almost certainly wrong about whatever it is we're saying, because 5 years ago we believed something different, right? You know, like, remember margarine used to be better than butter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and cigarettes were good for you. And so I'm like, so we're always wrong in the sense that we get closer and closer to generally, I think, progress and truth and so on. But what that means is, at the moment, we're as right as we can be, but we shouldn't act as if we're right.
No, we shouldn't act as if we're right. And I also, the frustration that I get frustrated with not being understood, right? And I think that I think one of the biggest problems we have this feeling as if the language that we're speaking right now is actually doing the job we think it's doing. I think that one of the biggest problems that we deal with in our society, things like that, is that we have the tendency to believe that our language is actually conveying our thoughts correctly. And how do I put it? Like, the most fascinating thing that I came across is Sam Harris and Noam Chomsky. Their email exchange with each other. Where if as an outsider reading their email exchange, they were not connected. Right? They're like, Noam Chomsky says it's one thing, and then it's interpreted one way, and then it goes back and forth. And we're talking about black belt intellect, right? I mean, like, these guys, Noam Chomsky literally isn't like the father of modern-day linguistics. I mean, and Sam Harris is an extremely intelligent human being. And so the fact that these guys are constantly not being able to understand each other, and they are going back and forth using our language to the best of its ability, I think that says it all. I mean,
it's interesting to think about how that's a limiting factor.
Oh, it's a huge limiting factor.
That's why people like mathematics so much.
No, I'm with you. But the thing that you said, like, margarine used to be better than butter. First, we have to clarify a few things. What does it mean to be better? Like, and we got to figure out where the subjectivity and where advocating. I've been doing this more and more, and I've just been annoying people. to like dissect some of the conversations I get into, and I remove all the subjectivity and go, where are we only speaking in objective truth? And when you do that, you can actually dissolve almost any argument.
I see.
Almost. I think 90-something%. Most of the arguments that I get into are really just a matter of that. A matter of not being honest about the precision of our language. Like, for instance, I heard someone go, America, make America great again, and saying America is never great in the first place. And so that's just a nothing conversation.
Yeah.
You have to clarify so much on both ends.
It wasn't really to make something great.
Yeah. And so you had, and the person that responded had to have already assigned certain meaning and intention behind that first phrase and has now responded. So we're just all off track now. Like, I don't know what anyone is even saying at this point. They're nothing statements. And that's where I think that's where we live now. It's just a lot of nothing statements.
Yeah, there's been some really, I think, fascinating research. So I think one of what you're talking about is this difference between winning and finding truth. And so there's a notion in psychology called motivated reasoning, And so, the ancient philosophers were really, they were very reason-based, right? And so the idea is that you develop reasons and arguments, and then you come to some truth. The motivated reasoning starts with what you want the outcome to be, and then you call the reasons to make it so. Yeah. And you downplay, counter-argue the stuff that doesn't make it so. What's fascinating is the smartest people are the best at doing this. And so because they have the mental horsepower to argue well. Yeah. So what you would hope is that the smartest people are best at seeking truth. Unfortunately, it's not. They're best at seeking evidence for what they believe to be true a priori. Yeah. So this creates a lot of, it helps polarization. So I want to stop about this for a second because what got you talking about this was you were talking about outrage culture and the feeling that so it sounds to me like you're saying that you needed to find an outlet to be able to speak to a message, and this audience of one project is your attempt to do this. Yeah, I think partially. Yeah, partially. I think that writing comedy songs is just fun. As well, it's a nice way to spend your time. It is, most of my time doing research on comedy is a great way to spend your time doing science. Yeah, because you're laughing as you're doing the research. It is more fun. Yeah. I've had more fun doing this research than I did studying mixed emotions or studying moral psychology or whatever it is. Yeah. And I want to enjoy my life, so it's nice. I was in the studio, a few weeks ago. I was writing a song called Sex All Night. And one of the lyrics is like, he asks for consent to sex in the song, and it's, please, my God, and it's just like, please. And when he sang that moment, that lyric, because it's all done, seriously. Yeah. Like it's sung normal. It just is cracking us up, and it's like, that's a great the Concord kind of, yeah. A little bit. There's this little area that I'm trying to hit, and I think it's a special little area where it's a comedy song that sonically you wouldn't really know. So if you didn't, what it would be like, if I didn't understand English, and I listened to your song, I would be like, oh, that is a love song. Exactly. So there's not a lot of people do this. So a lot of people, because they'll put on a comedy vocal, but I think part of the comedy is to play it straight. So you're never, it's not Lonely Island, because Lonely Island will play into the comedy. Right? Yeah, or what's the Jack Black? Jack Black, all of it, they're playing into the comedy. Yeah. Instead, play as if you don't realize that it's a joke. If the character is putting out what he believes to be really good music. But lyrically, it's more like Stephen Colbert. Stephen Colbert? Oh, in the film, they're playing it still, playing it so still. Yeah, yes, exactly. Like, he doesn't even know he's being funny. Yeah, there's Tim Minchin, is it? Tim Minchin, yes. I'll do comics. Yeah, and so there's musical content. He's this guy's amazing. But one of the things that he does is he always plays on a grand piano. And part of the reason he does that, he said in an interview, is because by having the grand piano there, he creates the ambiance of a real rock concert, like an actual talented, and then he starts to sing about toilets or whatever. That's part of the joke. That's the concept. I want to. I'm going to wrap up in a moment, but I want to get back to your well project. So you want to build 100 wells. How are you doing this? Well, I've been struggling with the discipline moment, but I think I have to pivot and say, okay, this is how it's working. I have a Patreon that I've set up, and 100% of the money goes toward the funding of these wells. I say I've been struggling with it because I've been trying to convince Patreon to not take the cut because that just doesn't let me do that. And then also trying to figure out a way to not take taxes on it if they don't mean I can get out of it. Because normally a Patreon account is it's a form of income. And like, I like your music, I give you $2 a month because I like you, and that gets registered as income, and they take a percentage.
But, the way I look at it is, I don't mind paying taxes on considering what it's going to. But there's also a website that I've created that is on the First Project website. So, and if you end up donating there, 100% straight there. Doesn't even go to me, go straight there. But what's nice about the Patreon is, like, I have the rewards set up, and there's the monthly
auto pay.
And I still want to really build that community out where I'm doing these music videos. Where they put their names in the credits, and
so I give money, and then you make either shout out kind of thing.
Yeah, once a month. I'm getting back on track this month, but once a month I'll put out some music video, and if you donated $25, you get your name in the credits, on the rolling credits at the end. It's like you're a producer, associate producer of the music video.
I've always wanted to do that.
Here's a chance. 100% of the money goes to, well, not, minus the Patreon.
I get it, yeah. Well, that is incredibly well intentioned, at least from the outside of the peer.
And I'll, figure out on my own on the other.
So, if you can, so you're in this sort of unstable place, right? You've checked a lot of boxes in life. And sounds like you have this two new exciting projects, the Well Project and this comedy project.
Yeah, I'm gonna go together. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I see. And then, but is there, can I nail you down on a big, hairy, audacious goal that you have beyond that?
I'm looking for a wife.
Is that true?
Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
I'm looking, girlfriend for, yeah, I'd like to have kids. So, but, I'm not worried at this age. Not
in the 30s.
Yeah, just in 36.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Thank you. But yeah, that's kind of,
I get it. But, from a perma model, all this makes sense. So, it's not the case that the path to a good life, walking the same path your whole life is the right thing for you. It's just regularly changes. And so people, like, for example, the kind of classic, so you might have someone who's on a very achievement track, gets an MBA, gets a GED, starts working for Disney, and so on, then decides they're going to have a family, and then maybe gives up the job totally to become a stay-at-home parent, or downshifts, and takes a job that doesn't pay as quite as well, but gives you time and flexibility, and then now you went from an achievement focus to a meaning focus. And then the kids go out of the house, and now you're an empty nester, and then you go into like a pleasure relationship focus with your mate, and who you kind of had to sort of work independently of each other for a long time, and now you're back bonded again, and so just because something was the right path in the past doesn't mean it's the right path in the future.
I agree with that. One of the books that I every once in a while, if I feel too strong and I reread is Who Knew My Keys. You ever read that?
Yeah, a long time ago. I mean, that's a classic business book. It's a clear book, right?
It's just a principle. It's a quick little, tiny little read. It's just the idea, the main idea being that, just because you're used to keys being supplied you in one specific area doesn't mean that it's going to be supplied to you forever. And so sometimes you have to make the decision that it's time to move on to something else.
Especially before the world makes you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to suggest that you read the Steve Pressfield book, The War of Art.
Okay.
This is a perfect moment for you to read it.
Okay.
I also highly recommend it to any listener who does creative work. This is actually a perfect segue though into my final question, which is, what are you reading, watching, or listening to that's outstanding? It's great.
Yeah,
it's good. It's great.
My last book that I read was your book, recommendation, I believe.
Sapiens?
Sapiens.
Ah, yeah.
And I read it a little too fast. I
he would binge that book. You wouldn't think so. It's like a 400 or 500 page book, and I read that book in 6 days. I think that he has a writing style that is very digestible. I would read that book. I was reading that book, and I would underline sentences, and in the margin I would write, how can I write a sentence like that? Oh, yeah. So I agree with you. So that's my biggest recommendation to people right now. Yeah. I also read Amadeus now, and I'm on 21 lessons at the moment. Sapiens is by far the best. It's not even... Yeah, Amadeus is not quite like the publisher is like, you gotta write another. Well, also the issue is, this is a classic thing. He's a historian. Mm-hmm. Sapiens is a historical account. Homo Deus is a futurist account. Yeah. And so it's just harder to get your head around because it's just like this guy's just making a prediction. Yeah. And predictions are a lot. Brilliant mind, but you're right. It's not the same. What am I watching? Yeah, or if you are. Game of Thrones. Or you and everyone else in this town. I just read a song that was from one of the characters' perspective. I don't want to say any more without spoiler alert. And what am I listening to? And you'll get shunned in this town for doing this, but I do listen to Ben Shapiro. And the reason I listen to Ben Shapiro is, despite him being a controversial, the guy is not liked in this town, I'll tell you that much, is that I get inundated with the left opinion. It's not hard to find a left opinion living in LA. I understand it. I enjoy the late night shows, so I watch Chuck Myers and I watch, Steve Goodell, and I enjoy all that. So I don't know, it's all great. But I think it's important to go out and understand both sides of what's going on in the sort of political atmosphere that's happening right now. And that is a conservative Republican that believes what he's saying. Mm-hmm. Whether you like it or not, he's a very intelligent guy. You don't have to agree with anything he says, but that is a great place to get a perspective. And I think the bulk of the sort of Republican Party is stupid. Yeah. Because I think that Fox News has it's a little harder to read through the propaganda. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And not that other news outlets don't have their own. Yeah, of course. But I mean, it's kind of wonkier. Like, is he a little more policy based? Yeah, his voice is really annoying. But the kid graduated high school at 16, went to UCLA, graduated Harvard. I think he was top of his class. Kind of, the question. I mean, it's hard to listen to smart people who you disagree with because. Oh, by the way, they're great at. Sorry, I mean, I was going to say, he did exactly what he is not speaking the truth. He's probably from very motivated reasoner. Yeah, he's among the best in the world. And he really is. He lives for the debate. He's over about it. Okay, he's really doing that. And he loves, giving it to the lefties, or whatever I call it. But, yeah, that's not but if you can stomach, if there's somebody that means less, if you can, because it's going to piss you off a lot. Sure. It's a good place to understand where the mind of the right is coming from. Yeah, and I think the solutions that work are going to be the ones that, that end up being a little more down the middle than we can do. Oh, one last thing, and then we'll wrap, but I think I alluded to 2 things, and then I only talked about one. So one, I talked about the sine waves. When you're down, you're going to be up, and when you're up, you're going to be down, and it's important to, when you're young, you don't realize that, but as you get older, you've had more experience to start to go, okay, this is not going to last forever. At least generally, some people are always down. Almost no one is always up, except maybe Bradley Cooper. But the other one is, I do ask a consumption question last. Mm-hmm. But I really rejiggered my creation to consumption ratio. So I think that the average person consumes too much and creates too little. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that even like the people, like you are a creator, and you need to consume some because you want inspiration, you learn, you know what I mean? Yeah, of course, but it's consuming is easy. Creating is hard. Yeah, but in the long run, it's the creation that's rewarding, that's meaningful, and purpose, like that's engaging, that makes your life
life better. And so that's one of the things I'm like really working on.
That's what I'm going to do.
I had a computer touch my TV and it broke, and I let it stay broken. And I basically worked up a whole nother book idea in the evenings that I don't think I ever would have done if the computer had continued to work.
Yeah, I think
because it's so easy to consume at the end of the day, you're tired, whatever, and then now I didn't have anything to consume but an old stack of DVDs that I didn't want to watch because they're an old stack of DVDs.
So I'm re-watching Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Because it's just a waste of life. Why re-watch a show you've already seen?
Well, the only good reason to re-watch Breaking Bad is if you were looking for inspiration about a show, about an idea, a story, you know what I mean, to learn how to make a Breaking Bad.
Maybe that's not the greatest example because that show is actually so good that I am watching it and being inspired.
Learning from it?
Well, there's cinematography in that show.
I think that.
There are moments when I'm like, okay, when I shoot that, next time I shoot
a video,
I'm gonna play with those angles and play with that.
You know, my favorite example of this is Steven Soderbergh. Mm-hmm. You can go on his website and find this. He took Raiders of the Lost Ark. So evidently Steven Spielberg is a master of blocking a scene. Mm-hmm. Something. I don't think you're the average person you never noticed. You're moved by it, but you don't know what's happening. Mm-hmm. Soderbergh wanted to learn, so he was rewatching Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think over and over again, but what he realized was everything else was getting in the way. So he stripped the color from it, turned into a black and white, and then he stripped the sound, and he put a song, there's like non-vocal music. So if you go onto Soderbergh's website, you can find Raiders of the Lost Ark with no dialogue and no color.
So I can focus on the block
so he could watch and learn the blocking.
That's interesting, yeah.
That's someone who's consuming, but clearly consuming not for entertainment value, but to learn.
I think there's a huge difference. And that's something to read, is just consuming with purpose versus consuming to purely
check
out. Because when I go on Instagram, I go to the explore page, and I'm just looking at, girls or people working out,
aesthetically pleasing pictures.
Yeah. Michael Jordan doing a dunk for the 4th time. That is clearly a waste of time. That is just checking out.
Yeah, I get it.
That I need to work on.
Yeah, of course, we do need to relax, and there are, so to me it's just about a ratio. It's not about you take it to 0. It's just getting the right ratio. I think it's a sad world if the world's great creators, people like you, watch too much Game of Thrones. I think the world's worse off when the people who should be making TV shows are watching too much TV.
Yeah.
Or whatever, I mean, you do, okay, now I'm completely off. I need to wrap this up. But the way I thought about it was, it's like, reading books is like nutrition, and working out is like writing. You need both, but the really important thing if you want to get in shape is to work out hard.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm off. I didn't mean to start to do that. I sound like a self-help book. Chester, thank you for being early.
Yeah.
And I wish you luck, and I look forward to hearing this comedy album.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate the time.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to visit petermcgraw.org for more information about our guests, show notes, and social media links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with others. Join Dr. Peter McGraw next week for another fun, fascinating conversation on I'm Not Joking.